Hello and welcome back to the Go-Karts and Good Times YouTube channel. Today I'm going to be working on the motorcycle, and hopefully by the end of this video the VTR 250 will be running for its first time in years. It may seem like I say this in every video, but the garage is finally clean again after the exhaust fabrication and messing with the snowmobile engine, which is parts are stored away in this box. While it may have made more sense to make a video on the snowmobile engine, my first priority is the motorcycle, and I finally have the things I need to get it reassembled and get it running. Being more specific, I finally found the choke parts that I needed to put these carburetors back together and on the bike to get it running. I also got some exhaust putty and some exhaust paint, all of which will keep me busy while I wait for a battery and exhaust wrap to come in the mail. All that's left to do now is cue the exhaust removal time lapse. It's off. Now for a cleaning and a liberal application of this exhaust putty. To begin the time lapse, I just want to say that I'm only going to be putting the putty on parts that I plan to exhaust wrap, like the middle tube here. The factory exhaust did have heat shielding on this piece. Pieces, however, will receive the exhaust paint, which needs to be baked on. I'm always open to advice and suggestions in the comments, but I want to make a disclaimer. I know that I'm not using this stuff as intended, but I really don't want it to leak, and I will be exhaust wrapping it anyway. And other people might also disagree with me painting then exhaust wrapping, but I want this thing to be solid and last longer than a couple years before I have to replace it. Realistically, you're not going to see it much anyway, and I could have done none of this, so it doesn't really matter in the long run. Next, I'm going to tackle the carburetor, starting with these dirty choke slides. To clean these up, I'll most likely be using carb cleaner and a Scotch-Brite pad. Afterwards, hitting them with some light lubricant and putting them in the carb. Before I get them installed though, I need to figure out the cable situation. I did order a new one, but the front and rear sections are the incorrect length. I found out though, it uses the same mechanism to split one cable into two, and I think I can put the back section from the original cable on to the front section of my new cable. As you can see, the cables are different lengths, but where the front and rear section come together, they're essentially the same. So I'm going to get these pieces swapped out. Just like that, it's done. And you may be wondering, if I got the original cable unfrozen, why am I not using it? But it's still gross inside, the cable is old, and the end is frayed. So I'd rather have something new and fresh than something old and crusty. Now, just to put these cables on the carbs. The unfortunate part about switching out these pieces is the different end caps have different tolerances. So I may want to put a clamp on the cable to keep it from popping off, even though it shouldn't anyway. And after all that, they work. While I could try and get these fitted tonight, I think I'm going to come back tomorrow to get the boots softened up and then slip them on. I also have to wait for the exhaust putty to dry before I can paint it or install it anyway. After giving it plenty of time to dry and cure, it's time to get these parts hung up so that I can paint them. First, and albeit slightly heavy coat applied, I now have to do two more before they're done and can be put on the bike. With a second coat of paint on, if I can get the bike running today, this is almost perfect timing. My exhaust wrap has finally arrived in the mail. While I'm sure there are benefits to spending more on a more expensive kit, coming with 2 gloves, an instruction pamphlet, metal ties, and of course the wrap itself, this kit has everything I need besides a bucket and some water to soak the wrap. 3 coats of paint applied, these pipes actually look pretty good. Typically, to cure the exhaust paint, you would put the pipes onto the vehicle and let it run at idle for a given amount of time. Instead, I'm going to try and use a heat gun to help cure the paint because it would be much easier to do the exhaust wrap while it's off this one time instead of having to put the exhaust on and take it off again. This isn't that inconvenient, but I thought if I could all get it done in one step and then not have to run the bike before I put the exhaust on, it would make everything a little bit easier. While I haven't been filming because I've just been working with the heat gun, I'm pretty sure it gets sufficiently hot enough to actually bake the paint on. Following the instructions from the can, doing multiple rounds of heating and cooling, I'm doing the exact same process that would have been done if I had installed it on the bike and ran it. There's a noticeable difference in the finish of the paint, so I believe using the air gun is actually working to cure it. After doing a little bit of research, I've decided it's best not to fully submerge the wrap, but merely wet it as I apply it, and I think I'm going to go with about a 50% overlap as I lay it on. With all 3 pipes sufficiently cured, it's time to get wrapped. One down, 2 to go. Well, it's not perfect. I think it looks pretty good for basically my first try. Well, this piece will be drastically more difficult. I have confidence I can pull it off. Once again, I'm pleasantly surprised with how this came out. Even though around the flange in the middle here it's not perfect, I still think it's plenty fine for my purposes. With all gaskets sourced, now I can finally install the exhaust permanently. And while the ones I was able to get locally weren't the correct size, I was able to trim them down and I think they'll work. All that's left to do is to remove the old ones, then I can put the exhaust on for one last time. Everything still is loose, the exhaust is finally installed, and hopefully for the last time. Like with easy tasks, like putting on the slip-on muffler, or where I got 3/4 of the way through the installation process of random hardware, and it was just repetitive and a pain in the butt to get to, I stopped recording, but it's all the same. You've seen it before. It's getting pretty late, so I'm going to snug up the exhaust and call it a night. With the exhaust all tightened up, now I'm going to move on to installing the carbs, starting with the handlebar control for the clutch. Off camera, I did a little bit of work to get these vent lines installed onto the carbs and the main fuel feed. Now all I have to do is get them seated in the boots and attach the throttle cables. I feel a little bit silly right now because for the past few weeks I've been dreading this exact step, putting the carburetors on. But after taking the correct steps to prepare and figuring out what every hose and line does, they went on super quick and easy. Now I'm going to move on to connecting the throttle cables and then hopefully using a little bit of gasoline in the unconnected line or some starting fluid to hear it pop over for the first time. Well, I might have hooked it up backwards the first time, the carbs are finally on. Now all I have to do is put on a battery and see if it cranks over and will start up. With a proper battery, I can finally get this thing installed and reliably start it up.
Well, we used up the other stuff. Cleaning it up.
With loose, unadjusted carburetors, the wrong jet size, and running at a half choke, the bike still seems to run pretty strong. Now it's just fine-tuning and getting everything squared up before I can actually run it. Before running it for long periods of time, I also want to fill up the coolant. After editing the video, I think this is a good place to end it. And I do want to apologize for how much of the video was speaking, but it is what it is. Finally having this thing running again and having the exhaust fitted, I think I can now finally start to put it back together. This means things like the shock, inner plastics, and anything that doesn't get in the way of the carburetors because I feel I'll be messing with these and need to get them out later. Not only adjusting things like the throttle, with a new exhaust, I will have to get a different set of jets for these carbs because it's more free-flowing. In addition, there are a couple of maintenance items like an oil change, new oil filter, and new coolant that need to be done to it before I can consider it good to go. Another quick sneak peek for the boat project. I have all the video I've taken of it already edited, and I just have to decide when to put it out. And with that, I hope you'll stick around until next time where this thing really comes together. I'm finally in the end stages now. Thank you for watching. I hope this one turned out okay, and if you enjoyed, I'd appreciate it if you liked, commented, or even subscribed. I hope you too are staying safe, having fun, and getting a chance to work on your own projects. But for now, this is me signing off.